Well, I'm not going to lie. That's a tough loss for the Toronto Blue Jays, but another series coming up, and we got to have the discussion. A lot coming out on the Bo Bichette contract situation now that Vladdy's signed. This team does need him.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, down on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well as our Locked On Blue Jays official Twitter, Locked On Jays. Make sure you guys do go follow us on there. That's where we'll be posting all of our updates and everything. So go follow us there. Lot to get into today, but just before we do that, make sure you guys hit the follow button on our TikTok and our Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays, and on YouTube. If you're not subscribed yet, or you're listening somewhere else, make sure you head over to the YouTube page. You hit the subscribe button there. It really does help us out. And you guys get the posts, the videos, the podcast, the shorts, the live streams, all of it. But yeah, lots to get into. Lots to get into today. We got to talk about Bo Bichette because he's the next contract that this front office has talked about. Ross Atkins has talked about, and Bo himself wanting to stay in Toronto. Then we'll break down sort of what happened in the game and in the series as a whole, and then tee up the next one for you over the weekend. We have a very busy weekend, but we'll hope to. We'll be around, Carter. We'll be able to watch all the games. It's gonna be a really fun weekend. It should be anyway. I guess. Let's kick things off with Bo Bichette. And I want to kick the conversation off with a quote from Ross Atkins specifically, because this is where the conversation starts, right? Ross Atkins talking to Hazel May about Bo Bichette. The interest is definitely there to talk about negotiations. It's our vision for them, Bo and Vladdy, to continue to play together. We will do everything in our power to see if we can line that up. That's a big start to this whole conversation, right? It was so iffy when the whole Vlad situation was starting of what was going to happen. I think now we see a more clear path forward, especially with Bo Bichette and what this organization now is in the place to do moving forward.
I think everyone was under the assumption that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was the priority of the franchise. And I think even Bo Bichette himself came out and said, hey, I understand that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a necessity. Like, they were really focusing on him, but we haven't really undergone negotiations at all. Now with this Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stuff out of the way, there is going to be a ton of talk around Bo Bichette. Ross Atkins has already gone out and talked about Bo Bichette, Mark Shapiro, and we already have all the insiders and analysts saying that Bo Bichette is as good as gone as well. And that's one thing that has been, again, just frustrating with this whole contract negotiations talks. But that's what happens when you leave two of your faces of the franchise to their contract year. But now, like, everything that was talking about with Vladdy, people saying, oh, he's not going to resign Vladdy, he's going to Boston, he's going to New York. Now those exact same conversations are going right to Bo Bichette. And it's been interesting because with Vladdy, we've always heard from Vladdy. He said, I want to stay in Toronto. Toronto is my home. I want to stay in Toronto. Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro say, we understand that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a very good player. We want to keep him in Toronto. There's always on both sides, there were some aspirations to keep them together. Bo Bichette, from what we've seen, he's never said anything negative about Toronto. He's always said that he wants to stay in Toronto. He wants to play with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He wants to win championships with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I have a quote from Hazel May when she was talking to Bo Bichette about that. He said that winning championships has been a goal since he was a kid, to be with one organization his whole career and building a winning culture with Vladdy. But this is when there was no contract negotiations on the table right now. And Bo Bichette talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. I got another quote with their relationship, and he says, Vladdy is one of my best friends. We've had tons of conversations like that about extensions. We've talked about playing together since he was 18 and I was 19. That's still a goal of ours. So we have all of these conversations where Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro said there is a common interest that Bo Bichette wants to return to the Toronto Blue Jays. Bo Bichette goes out. He says, oh, I want to play with Vladdy. I want to stay with one organization my entire career. And now we already have all these insiders, all these analysts, all these, honestly, there's some Toronto Blue Jays fans that are saying it as well, that Bo Bichette is as good as gone, that he does not want to stay with the Toronto Blue Jays. No point of even fathoming that he's going to be on the Toronto Blue Jays past 2025. Just doesn't make sense that we're jumping from one portion of the negativity that's surrounding Toronto Blue Jays just right into another, just days after you have the biggest contract signing in Toronto Blue Jays history.
Yeah, and Carter, going back to when we first, said the news that Vladdy was going to be staying, My first thought was, okay, now you go out and you get Bo Bichette because you want to keep this core together. And that's what it's sounding like. So all this negativity around this subject, I think is going to go by the wayside. Just with the more we hear the front office talk, Bo Bichette himself talk, Vladdy talk about, the team talk about wanting to keep Bo here now as well. Um, I think this is something that's going to get done personally. I don't, maybe not in the next 2 weeks, but I could see it being done this season, within the season. Um, and I think they want to make sure that they have their core locked up and be able to build around these guys. You see again what Bo Bichette is doing. This is the Bo Bichette we all thought he was going to be. This is the Bo Bichette that we all remember from 2 seasons ago, right? He has one down year, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, whatever. Who cares if Bo Bichette walks?" You should care if Bo Bichette goes to free agency. Bo Bichette needs to be a Toronto Blue Jay. You can't build an organization around one guy. As great as Vlad is, and we want him to be, he can't be everything. You do need to surround him with pieces. And the Carter, this goes back to at the end of last season when I think we put out the TikTok and I was talking about complementary and supplementary pieces. Bo Bichette is absolutely that. He has proven himself already this season of what he's capable of. And I think he can only go up. I really do. I think Bo Bichette still has a lot of gas left in the tank. And the negativity talks around this guy is unbelievable. And you're right. It's the Blue Jays fan base and Blue Jays media wanting to spin this in some negative direction, just like they did with the Vlad stuff. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. When I came on here, and I was pretty positive they were going to get a deal done. Right up until even after the season, I said I think even with conversations still going on, I think something's going to get done, and I fully believe that's what's going to happen with Bo Bichette now too. I think with this Vlad deal, they've proved that they're willing to spend money and go out and make big moves and big decisions for this organization's future, and that's where we are now. It's another big decision that has to be made, but at the end of the day, it sounds like this is something they want to move forward with.
And the way the media is talking is it sounds like free agency starts like next week. Like
Yeah,
there's still a full season of baseball, a full off season of baseball. There's a lot that can happen between right now and those contract negotiations that can completely change everything. Bo Bichette could have an injury. There could be the Toronto Blue Jays could all of a sudden fall off a cliff. The Toronto Blue Jays could be first in their division. Like there's a bunch of things that could happen. Bo Bichette could be an all-star. He could completely fall off the edge of the map. So a lot of Bo Bichette's performance is going to impact what his contract looks like. I think that has been one of the major differences when we look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette, where Vladdy had one of his best seasons in 2024. We were talking about referring it to the 2021 season where he was a runner-up MVP, probably an MVP in every other year. Shohei Ohtani does not exist. With Bo Bichette, he had his worst season of his career in 2024. And when we're talking about free agents, at least when I'm talking about free agents, I always like to talk about buying low and selling high. So if in Bo Bichette terms, Bo Bichette knows probably he's Bo Bichette. He's going to bet on himself. Every single player usually bets on himself. He knows that he's a good baseball player. He knows what he does have in the tank. He's not going to go out with the Toronto Blue Jays and lowball himself after the worst season of his career. He's going to try to bet on himself, bounce back in 2025, which he already has begun to do throughout the first 14 games of the season. Bo Bichette knows what he's worth. Why would he sign a contract when he's coming off of the worst season of his career and his value is at an all-time low? So there wasn't any incentive whatsoever on Bo Bichette's front to go out and sign this contract extension. So it's going to benefit him. And I think it would give fans some certainty as well, seeing Bo Bichette have another good year, even though we've seen Bo Bichette have 5 good seasons, that Bo Bichette is the real deal. Bo Bichette is an all-star caliber player. And then at that point, when we see Bo Bichette have the production that he's going to have in 2025, whether it's good or bad, that will drastically shape his contract and how that does look in free agency.
Yeah, it will. And you're talking about free agency. Everybody is. I still believe. I don't think this is getting there. I think they come to an agreement before that. Personally, I don't think this goes to free agency. After seeing what happened with Vlad, I don't think this organization is going to let it get to free agency. Personally, I don't know. How do you feel? You think it's free agency bound?
Well, I thought Vladdy was going to go to free agency. I thought he had every reason to go to free agency. I did think the Toronto Blue Jays had a very good chance of signing him. But I think with this one, I'm still going to go with the same stance I had with Vladdy. I think there's just more uncertainty here with Bo Bichette. And I don't know if they're going to jump the gun crazy early on in the season, unless they're getting an absolute bargain with Bo Bichette. I think I was more certain that a Vladdy extension would get done in the middle of the season than a Bo Bichette one. So I'm even farther on the other side where I really think this one's going to free agency. I'd almost say it's 100% going to happen.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't buy it. I think this is getting done. I think they were waiting for the pieces to fall with the Vlad deal to make sure that they locked him up and they didn't have to go and feel like they needed to start fresh. Now that that's done, I think there's going to be a deal on the works within the next, I think by June, Carter, to be honest with you. I think it's done. So again, we can debate it, and it's personal stance. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day, and neither do you. So the people listening to this, neither do any of you guys. It's up in the air. It's how do you feel about the certain situation? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think they even should sign Bo Bichette back? Do you think they should sign him to an extension? I mean, I think it's crazy if you don't think they should, but hey, everybody's got their own opinions and we want to hear them. Leave it down in the comment section below. Carter, we got a whole game to get into and talk about that happened. And then obviously another whole series to preview. I do want to not just look back at this past game, but sort of the series as a whole and thoughts and feelings after this last one here. So let's take a quick break. Let's come back. We'll talk all that before we get into the series preview for the Baltimore Orioles as well.
Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers extra support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order, and that is at supplyhouse.com.
So, Carter, a lot to get into on the games. I'm going to get the big one out of the way first. Okay, the Blue Jays fall to the Red Sox in extra innings, and they take the series 3-1. That's a great thing. I think let's not overlook the fact that the Blue Jays did go out and win this series. I said 3-1. I'm just putting it out there. I called it. Not a big deal. I'm awesome. But at the end of the day, Carter, this one to me, I'm not a guy that likes to really dig down on the umpiring because I said that's part of baseball is a little bit of the unknown, a little bit of each up having their own strike zones and having their own calls and whatever. But this was a bad one. This one was horrible. I mean, especially in extra innings when Nick Sandlin goes in and should have gotten that call in the high with the high fastball. He painted that pitch and didn't get the call, which would have led to the Blue Jays getting out of it. And don't get me wrong, the offense needs to show up more than they did. But overall, the umping was horrible. I'm not going to let that go. That sucks. But that wasn't the only issue in this game either.
See, it definitely sucks seeing some of those calls just going the opposite way. There's a bunch of bad calls today. David Schneider just continues. He's already struggling, and then you're getting calls that are 5 inches high, and they're getting called strikes. It's obviously not going to help his situation out. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to be a guy to complain about the umpiring because Nick Sandlin, again, you want that strikeout there, would have 2 outs. You would have runners on first and second, but who knows? Something could happen. Trevor Story could have went and hit a double or something. So you'd never know at the end of the day if it would have worked out for the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's definitely sucks to see the calls not going in your favor, but just the lack of run scoring, which we kind of saw throughout the entire series, honestly, other than game 2, this offense really not kicking it into gear whatsoever. And we're talking about just how the top of the order needs to get going. The bottom of the order making this game just honestly watchable from an offensive perspective. You don't have Vladdy in the lineup. That made it a lot worse. But at the end of the day, if you're not scoring runs, you do have other options, whether it's your pitching, whether it's your hitters. Someone needs to step up, and you can't really blame the umpires for a loss at the end of the day.
I mean, you can't. Your guys need to play better. It was pretty bad. I don't know. I mean, I'm not blaming them for the loss, but it definitely doesn't help the situation where some calls, especially after spring training, where you see the balls and strike system come into play and it is successful. And then it gets sort of taken away from you. And again, I didn't like the system, how it was. And then they brought it in. I didn't like the idea of the system. Then they bring it in. And I really did like it. I thought it was quick. It was easy. It was painless. And in this situation, it would have helped. But yeah, there was a lot of missteps by this team today. I mean, just the errors The errors were horrendous. Gimenez in that extra inning, not being able to come up clean with that ball and at least go to home to stop the runner. I mean, that loses you a game. That those kind of plays lose you games. The offense not being there, that loses you games. You can't expect to win baseball games 2-1. That's just not going to happen. So this team needs to start kicking it into high gear with the offense. And you know what? I'm getting almost sick and tired of Carter. And I know I said this last game, but of seeing Anthony Santander go up there and not be able to hit balls. I don't even want to say out of the park, but out of the park, man. Like, I want home runs out of this guy. And when he doesn't do it and continually isn't doing it in big situations, I just get more and more frustrated. But at the end of the day, I want to go back to the positives here. It was a great series. They got a 3-1 win over the Red Sox, which is huge, especially going into Baltimore. But at the end of the day, there are cracks on this team that you got to be worried about moving forward. And can they clean some of that up? Maybe. Can the offense get going? Maybe. But there are holes, and I think as we move forward, if we continually see these holes not be fixed, that's going to be a big problem for the rest of the year anyway.
That's the bad part about losing the last game of a 4-game series. If the Toronto Blue Jays lose the first game, they win 3 straight. We're on a completely different mound right now. We're probably a lot more elated than we would be because we did win a series against the Boston Red Sox after they were scoring a million runs against the Cardinals. Again, the pitching there is a little bit different. The Toronto Blue Jays just have a bunch of absolute beauties on their starting rotation, whereas the Cardinals, obviously, they do struggle with pitching a lot of the time. But it's just the way it happened too. Obviously, the umpires, but Nick Sandlin, again, you don't get that call, but then he hits Tristan Casas. That's a spot there. You brought up the errors. Will Wagner in that 8th inning, a very tough play, routine ground ball. Yeah. Tyler Heineman had a very good game, but does block a ball. Just has no idea where it is. Then Yimi Garcia kind of throws one away. It doesn't really end up mattering. But again, just a little bit of the mental errors. Then I'll go again, like you brought up. Andrus Gimenez does have a chance in that 10th inning to extend the game, get an out at home plate, but he does ball with the baseball. Just a little bit of the mental errors that did happen, especially when you have Chris Bassitt going out and just continuing to be dominant to start this season, as the rest of the starting rotation has been. Always sucks to kind of waste one of those starts. But at the end of the day, like we said, you wanted a 3-1 series win. You did get your wish. I said I was going to be happy with a 2-2 split. Obviously, I got my wish as well. Just overall, pretty good series against the Boston Red Sox. I think there's some clear headlines about this team right now. The starting rotation is absolutely disgusting. Anyone that was down on this rotation, especially with your top 4, maybe with the Max Scherzer, Easton Lucas situation, you could still have a little bit of you still need to get some clarity there. But with your top 4 like Bowden, Berrios, Gausman, Bassitt have been unbelievable. The back end of the bullpen looks good. I think it's going to be the power on this team. You have, I think it's 6 home runs still throughout the first 14 games. You don't have a home run from Santander. You don't have one from Vlad. You don't have one from Bo. You're getting a lot of your production right now from the bottom of the order, which is great to see, but it's always in the back of your head, how sustainable is this going to be? But you're winning baseball games, like I just said, without your top of the order producing and the bottom of the order really carrying your offense throughout these games. So there's positives and negatives you can obviously take from the series.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's any series. You're going to have your gripes, you're going to have your complaints, and you're going to have the guys you lean on. And one guy you got to give a shout out to, not only Bassitt for another good start, and even though he went into the media after it and was talking like he had a bad game out there. So it's just shocking. But these guys are going to hold themselves to a different standard, and that's fine. But I look at the game as an entirety, and I think this is an absolute win for Chris Bassitt. In saying that, Tyler Heineman has been a bright spot right now, an absolute shock. And it's nice. You need some guys at different points of the year to step up. And if this is the time of the year that Tyler Heineman is going to step up, then that's fantastic. That throw, when he threw out Duran there, goes trying to steal second base, Carter, was an absolute gun. He knew the situation. He knew he was going to go, and he gets up there and fires that ball. Great tag as well by Bo Bichette. I got to admit, he sort of gets him on the back end of the slide. Just a really nice play to watch. Tyler Heineman has been a joy to watch so far this season.
He's been, I think, one of the best players on the Toronto Blue Jays in their short season. You might have to talk me down the ledge a little bit on this one, but right now, again, this is very short term. I'm not saying this is going to happen for the rest of the season. Right now, Tyler Heineman's playing better baseball than Alejandro Kirk. The at bats look better. The defense, again, Alejandro Kirk plays good defense. I'm not really going to compare them too much in that way. But Tyler Heineman throwing multiple runners out, the Jaron Duran throwout was massive. Again, you're always going to look back at that block where he kind of loses the ball defensively. You're going to say, oh, if you had that, maybe you don't have that run score, and maybe this game does turn out a little bit differently. But man, he's been unbelievable, hitting 500, again, coming through in the bottom of the order when you're not having that top of the order produce right now. He's done everything you can expect from a backup catcher and more, especially when a lot of people, including us, did not even have him on this opening day roster. Definitely making the most out of his playing time, which you love to see early on from Tyler Heineman.
Well, Carter, and going off of obviously the Tyler Heineman and all the good things, there with the series coming up, this is a little bit of my concern is you didn't have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. To start this game, right? So obviously you miss one of your big guns, one of your big bats that you hope is eventually going to come through here with a big play in a big moment. But they also use this bullpen a little strangely, right? Because you go into extra innings so many days within one series, and that you have to end up using Nick Sandlin in a situation maybe where you don't, right? You use Chad Green early in the game. You use Brennan Little. Yimi Garcia has to go in because you want to hold them to hopefully nothing. And then you're left with Nick Sandlin or Yariel Rodriguez or Fluharty or Barnes. And it's like, well, Nick Sandlin's probably your best option there. But now my concern is moving forward to the Orioles series, game one. Where do you go? Do you go Yariel Rodriguez and then Jeff Hoffman? Like you're sort of now hoping and praying for a good outing from another starting pitcher because you don't have as many options because you just burned so many guys going through 2 games of extra innings. So it was a great series overall. It was a fun series to watch. Even the extra innings, when it gets to those points, it's great to see good battles, especially when they're AL East teams. It's a lot of fun and great on the Blue Jays. But you got to think with no off days coming up, this is something that's going to affect them moving forward. And maybe they do use Fluharty and then they go to Yariel and then to Hoffman. But it's, hey, can those 2 guys keep it under wraps until we get to Hoffman? Because you don't have your Chad Green, you don't have your Brennan Little, you don't have Yimi Garcia. So it opens up a whole can of worms. And then that goes into your point earlier in the season was, does this team need more stable bullpen arms in the back end? Do you trust Barnes? Do you trust Fluharty? I don't know. I don't know about Fluharty yet. They threw him in 2 of the most impossible situations to start the year. So it's a little bit iffy on how that's going to play out. But Jacob Barnes is Jacob Barnes. You know what you're getting out of him.
Yeah, and they finally threw Fluharty, and I think it was the second game of the series where they won 6-1.
Yeah.
They threw him in that game to put him in a little bit of a lower leverage situation. At the end of the day, when you're a lefty in a bullpen, like you're going to have to face good hitters. So like he's going to have to go against Devers. He's going to have to go against Duran, especially with like for Devers being a lefty. Like that's the situation that you have a left-handed pitcher in your bullpen for. It's more so like let's throw him in the 6th inning rather than the 8th or the 9th inning where he has to go against some of those left-handed hitters. But then that's exactly why you kind of did it full circle for me, is why I was not very happy about the Jacob Barnes and the Richard Lovelady roster decisions early on in the season, because you have situations like this. And just going over it, like the Toronto Blue Jays were on a tough schedule where they have 13 straight games. They're done 7 of them. They still have 6 more. But just going off of today's game, Chad Green threw 23 pitches, probably not available tomorrow. Yimi Garcia 23 pitches, probably not available tomorrow. Nick Sandlin 20 pitches, probably not available tomorrow. Brennan Little has 14. You probably can throw him. You'd rather not. But again, now if you have a situation where for the first game of the series, I can't remember who exactly it is, but say they have a blow-up start and they only go 4 innings. Now you have to throw Jacob Barnes. Now you have to throw Mason Fluharty because you don't have those other guys available because they already pitched in the game before. And that's where you do have some of these decisions to make. And like we brought up this point when we were talking about this like way earlier on, is that for all teams, how much faith do you really have in your lower leverage guys to begin with? And it's not that you have them like the most faith in them of all time, is that you have some faith in them. Like when Jacob Barnes goes out, I have no faith that it's going to go well whatsoever. When Lovelady's going out, I had no faith at all either. You want at least a chance for things to go well. I felt like they weren't giving the Blue Jays a chance when you're throwing guys like Jacob Barnes and you're throwing guys like Richard Lovelady early on in the season. But this is why bullpen management is so important, that when you have games in succession like this, you're not going to be able to throw every single guy every single game. And this is why you need options in your bullpen as well. If you don't have Jeff Hoffman, you got to be able to throw Yimi Garcia. You got to be able to throw Nick Sandlin. You got to be able to throw Chad Green. So bullpen management, especially early on in the season, is so important to a baseball team.
Yeah, and again, you know what? I want to sort of spin this back to a positive because we are coming off a series win to the Boston Red Sox. It is Bowden Francis today it will be. So we'll talk about that right away a little bit more and a little bit more in depth on this series against the Orioles. But Carter, I guess let's cap things off here on a good note. Thoughts and feelings just on the 3-1 win. This team being 8-6, second in the division right now behind the New York Yankees, who are, I believe, 7-5. So again, that could go. They could be first after tomorrow. Who knows, right? So I guess just how are you feeling about the whole start of this season so far as we do head into the weekend here?
You got to feel a lot better than you did last year. One thing that just like really sat with me is just watching the broadcast. Buck Martinez was obviously doing color today, and he was talking about a conversation he had with Miles Straw, where he said Miles Straw was really into this game. He said that it was a very integral win for the Toronto Blue Jays to have, and it was just a different level of competitiveness that he saw from last season. Whereas if the Toronto Blue Jays were ever in a situation where they could sweep a 4-game series, which probably didn't happen last year, that's one thing I want to go back and check is how many series the Blue Jays actually swept, because I don't think it happened a whole lot. But if the Toronto Blue Jays were in that situation, they were really okay with losing that game. Whereas it really felt like today, according to Buck, that those guys really wanted to win that game and really wanted to sweep the Boston Red Sox, a divisional opponent. So just the storyline that we've kind of talked about a lot after every series is it feels a whole lot different this year. Bo Bichette feels like he's back. Kevin Gausman looks unbelievable. Chris Bassitt looks great. You have a bunch of guys contributing throughout the order. The bottom of the order is contributing. And again, you haven't gotten the production from the top of the order. So in theory, you should be able to expect that better things will come, especially offensively, from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I hope so. You know what? I 100% agree. I think this team looks better to start the year, and I'm very happy with where we're at this season. So again, moving forward, we do have the Baltimore Orioles. So we're going to tee up that series coming right back at you and give you our thoughts and opinions on how this series is going to go. So, series against the Baltimore Orioles coming at you. We got Bowden Francis versus Sugano. Then on Saturday, Jose Berrios versus Povich. And Sunday, the Orioles do not have a starter listed quite yet. We're assuming a couple guys, but it's going to be Jose Berrios on the mound for the Toronto Blue Jays on Sunday. So a lot to look forward to, Carter. Looking at game one, we talk about the importance of this game when it comes from a bullpen standpoint and the need for Bowden Francis to go a couple innings. He's got to have a decent enough start where they don't have to solely rely on this bullpen coming in and having to do more work than they need to.
See, and that would be an issue for the first game of the Baltimore Orioles series. In an event where Bowden Francis can't go deep into a game, that's where you might have to throw a guy like Mason Flaherty. I think we'd probably be more likely to see Yariel Rodriguez, who again is a little bit of a question mark. He's either going to be unbelievable and probably go 2 innings of scoreless ball, or the command is going to be out the window and he might have 3 walks. So that's kind of the chance that you have to take on the coin flip if you do have to go to the bullpen early. But with Bowden Francis and how he's pitched early on, you got to expect that he will throw out a good effort. But this Baltimore Orioles lineup is a very good lineup. The pitching is where you hope the Toronto Blue Jays offense can kind of wake up and take advantage, especially with the matchups that you do have over the weekend. But Gunnar Henderson's back. They have all of their offensive firepower back, other than Colton Cowser, I guess, with the injury. But it's still a very good lineup, and Bowden Francis is going to have to keep the Toronto Blue Jays in the baseball game if they want a chance, again, to continue on this momentum they got from the Red Sox series and start the Orioles series off with a bang.
Yeah, you hope so. You hope so. I guess looking at all those matchups, Carter, I know, who did you think it was going to be on the Sunday? You sort of had a guess anyway?
I think it should be Zach Eflin, just based off how things have gone and based off the Orioles rotation. Again, with off days and things like that, they can make changes, but I think it would make sense for it to be Zach Eflin. But when you do have Cade Povich on the mound, when you have Tomoyaki Zugano on the mound as well, a guy that's not necessarily throwing hard, I think those are 2 matchups that you got to take advantage of. Zach Eflin has had a history of kind of being a little bit all over the map with the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, the Jays played really good against him on opening day against the Rays, but when Eflin went against the Jays opening day this time around, it obviously didn't go as well this time. So that game, I wouldn't rely on to win as much. Obviously, you want to win every single baseball game, but just strictly based off pitching matchups, you got to think the Toronto Blue Jays have an advantage in the first 2 games.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's why I'm slotting it in at 2-1. And you know what? I'm going a little bit off the map here. I think this is going to be 2-1 as the second and third game for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. Like I said, if you're going to, like I said in the 4-game series, if you're going to lose a series or if you're going to win a series and you're going to have to lose a game, you lose the game early on in the series, so you feel a whole lot better about the series by the end of it. If you lose the first game, win the next two, you're going to have a better taste in your mouth, obviously, with it going the other way around. And just that confidence. Confidence is such a big thing in the game of baseball. You know, if you're winning games, you're probably feeling a lot more confident than coming off of losses. And especially with this road trip right now, I know after this, they have the Atlanta Braves, who have started horrendously. They still have a very good roster, still a lot of tough teams that are the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be facing throughout this month of April. So having any sort of confidence at all going into these games, you want it to be higher than lower, obviously, with these tough opponents.
Yeah. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you guys tune into our TikTok and our Instagram page, as well as on YouTube here for our post-game reactions. We'll try to get them up. We do have a crazy, crazy busy weekend, but we're still going to get them up for you guys because we'll be watching the games. We got enough, we're trying not to miss any this year, but, once in a while it's going to happen. But hopefully at least one of us will be around to make sure we get all the details and information for you guys coming out of those games. And we'll be back Monday with more podcasts every single day, Monday to Friday. We always appreciate what you guys have done here, the likes and everything on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. The TikTok has been going nuts too, so make sure you guys go follow us on there as well. Carter, anything before we kick out of here for the night?
Not too much. Just hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays again can continue on that momentum, continue on their success against the AL East early on, and just I just wanted to apologize to the people. Braden decided to give me his illness, so now I've been kind of going through it the last couple of days, so it hasn't necessarily been my best, but hopefully I still do sound okay. Hopefully it hasn't been too bad on your guys' end. Still, obviously, don't want to miss the content for you guys here. Just want to say thank you guys for watching, the likes, comments, all the support recently has been much appreciated. But we have noticed that about 77% of you guys are not subscribed. So you are coming back, tuning into the shorts, the live streams, the episodes, helps us out a ton, also keeps our content at the top of your page. So other than that, just enjoy your weekend. We got a busy weekend ahead of us, so hopefully I can kick what I'm going through right now. But yeah, Toronto Blue Jays baseball, warmer weather, and seeing a bunch of friends can't go wrong for the weekend. Thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys on Monday.